Okay, so I think we'll get started now. Thank you all for joining. I know this is the last day of Dreamforce, so we really appreciate you getting up after some really fun events the last couple of days. And obviously the session will be recorded, so if you think it was awesome and somebody missed out, eventually you'll be able to see it online. My name is Dan Harrison. I am a master architect for Salesforce and spend all my time looking at cool things like Einstein Vision. And one of the things that we need to do is just briefly talk about forward-looking statement. What we're showing here is something that Nathan actually built, but make sure you make all your purchasing decisions based on stuff that Salesforce actually provides. Co-presenting with me today is Surbi. Surbi, you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Surbi Ravishankar, and I'm a demo engineer at Salesforce. I build cool things on the Salesforce platform, some of which you will be seeing today.
But most importantly, we're going to be hearing about hearing about an interesting problem from a 14-year-old boy from Canada who took a few hours to solve a problem that was actually a real-world problem for him. So joining us on the line is Nathan, and he's coming from Newmarket, Canada. And Nathan, do you want to introduce yourself? Check your audio. Mute.
I might be.
Hello.
There we go. Wonderful. Technology. So there we go. Now that you're connected, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nathan?
I'm Nathan Harrison. I built this project. I love my cat. I'm not sure if he loves me. I'm very, very happy to be sharing this with you, and also having a reason to skip school today.
Yeah. And we do appreciate, so for Nathan right now, it's only about 11 o'clock in the morning, so he's skipping a couple hours of school. We're going to try to keep the energy level high. We know this is Friday morning, and people are, if you're like me, you're just a little tired from a week of Dreamforce. But Nathan, how about you cover what you're going to be showing us today?
Well, today I'm going to be sharing with you how I came up with this idea and the immense value it has provided to me along with the use case.
And after Nathan shows you the cool cat demo, I will share with you some simple steps that you can take to build a business solution using Salesforce Einstein. Have any of you here played with a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino board or any microcontroller?
Okay. So a couple of people. Over at the Lego City and Robotics Ridge, we have a bunch of different types of devices. I also like the Raspberry Pi, which Nathan will be talking about today, and the Electric Imp. We have a trailhead focused on the Electric Imp. If anybody does want to start trying it out, I would encourage you to take a look at that. But Nathan, how about you tell us how you got into it? How did you get started?
Well, it all started when my older sister was getting ready to head off to college. At first, it seemed like a dream come true because I was becoming like an only child. And I've been promised a bigger bedroom.
Hey, Nathan,
but it came at a price.
The audio is just a little choppy, so talk a little bit slower. I know everybody here is excited to hear what you got to say, so slow down just a tiny bit. Thank you.
Choppy? Okay. Well, my interest in projects like this started when my sister was getting ready to head off to college. I was really excited at first because I was going to become like an only child, but it came at a price. All her chores are now falling to me. She didn't really do too much around the house, but looking after her needy cat is cutting into my video game time. I had to find a solution. So I began developing my interest for automating processes to simplify my new endless chores around the house. I'd just begun playing around in Python with the Raspberry Pi and trying out some Trailhead courses. I'd familiarized myself with the very basics of Python and wanted to try something more advanced that could combine my interest in Python and Salesforce. It was my sister's needy cat that gave me the perfect problem. One specific issue is her cat, Cider, likes to sit on the front porch, which is fine in moderate weather, but winters and summers in Toronto, Canada require the inside door to stay closed. As you may expect, I spend a lot of my time in front of a computer, most of it doing homework and maybe a bit playing games. So I don't hear Cider meow when he wants in the house, and we are worried he will get too hot or too cold out there. Let's face it, he's a cat. He's not great at patience. After some thinking and field trials, I had the idea to try Einstein Vision. Let me show you how great my life is now. First, the Raspberry Pi will take a picture, waiting 10 seconds between taking pictures. Then, it checks for a substantial difference between each image using basic Python commands to do a simplistic image compare. If it deems the difference large enough, then it'll trigger an upload of the image to Einstein. Once uploaded, Einstein scores the image against the model and marks it as one of a few categories. But Serby will talk more about that later. I captured over 100 images to make sure I knew the difference between sleeping and meowing in all different kinds of lighting and glare on the board. It is worth constantly refining my model so I don't get false notifications which might interrupt my, quote, homework time.
So, not to interrupt you, Nathan, you're doing great. One of the things that is important in what Nathan just said is the feedback. So what we try to do is capture more images. And as you go through a process, if you're a business, you look at the recommendations you get from Einstein. One of the really important things from an AI perspective is you constantly have to be taking that information in and refining your model. And it's a really important thing to keep in mind when you're doing an implementation like that.
Speaking of feedback, it is important that Salesforce feedbacks the results to me while I'm playing games. Despite being pushed by my dad to do something fancy, I've found having it post to Chatter and then subscribing to all posts was best for me. It is done with the simple process builder flow. Then my phone buzzes and I can get up to let the cat in before my parents dock my allowance.
That's great, Nathan. I'm really glad you're finding a good use for technology. In Nathan's defense, he does live in a house where I've automated many things around the home, obviously lights and stuff like that, but the cat feed food dispenser as well. And so we'd like to take the best use of technology to free up time in our house so that we have more time to play with even more technologies. So as we go through this, I've played around with many microcontrollers. Like I mentioned, check out Lego City. You'll see quite a few of them set up there. But what I wanted to point out is what Nathan's using here is really good for a POC for businesses. So this is a real solution that you can use for your business use cases and be able to provide what you want to show your companies that you can do this as well. So as we go through this, keep in mind how this might be a cat demo, but the reality is it is a valid service that you can use for your companies. In addition to that, it does take some sophistication to create the code, but I want to get into the code right now, and I want Nathan to share with you how he created it. It's a good starting point and really good for businesses from a POC, proof of concept, sorry. For anybody who's still really early in the morning, proof of concept. So Nathan, how did you end up getting started?
Well, even though it's very simple and it's the beginning of the code, I feel like it's very necessary that I take you through the code that keeps count of the images. I didn't want to send every image I took to Salesforce, so I used a counter to keep a lot of files locally. This lets me gather images to later train the model and troubleshoot problems. I reset a counter when I hit a maximum value, so I don't fill up the entire price store. As I capture each image, I run a basic compare. This code does a mathematical comparison by looking at the difference from pixel to pixel. It simplifies this information and spits out one final value, which, if it's over a certain threshold, will trigger an upload of the image to Salesforce. I found all of it on Google as well. It's okay if I sometimes send a few extra images, but I need to stay under the developer edition thresholds for requests per day. So far, it's all on the file. Let me now upload the image to Salesforce for recognition.
So before you start doing that, one of the things Nathan mentioned is he found this code on Google, right? Is that this is stuff you can find out there, making it fairly easy to create your POC. But Salesforce IoT makes it even easier. The value of Salesforce is that we help democratize the solution. And although we have in our solution here, we're using Raspberry Pi and Python, you can use Salesforce IoT to take those events and make it easy. You can even install MuleSoft right on a Raspberry Pi. So that effectively extends your business environment from Salesforce right down to the Raspberry Pi. It gives you a really good use case. So as we're going through this, as you think of it from a business perspective, there are ways to make sure you've got those capabilities that are ready for you as a business, not just as a POC. So I encourage you to take a look at the options. But Nathan, you wanted to get this working quickly, and really it was just going to be staying in our home. So how did you get the Raspberry Pi connected up into Salesforce?
Using the simple Salesforce library, it was very easy to upload an image to Salesforce. I found some sample code online, and with some minute adjustments, I could get it to upload a file where I wanted.
So you must have taken some shortcuts. I know you well enough.
I know security is critical, and this uses consumer secret and key, and the Pi is behind a private network with security. And I follow the Salesforce best practice once the data is on the server. Once the file is uploaded, I can just call the Einstein Playground functions that Serby created.
You're being generous, Nate. I'm just one of the many people who worked on the Einstein Playground. I worked with Shane, Renee, and Mike Broso to build the Einstein Playground. We have tried very hard to make adoption as quick and easy as possible, and in 3 steps, you can get started with creating predictions for custom objects and records. Over here, I built an invocable method that can be used with Process Builder. Although this Process Builder is configured for Einstein Vision, you can create a similar process for Einstein language to predict sentiments and intents. All you have to do is change the Apex class and make changes to some of the Apex variables so that they point to the appropriate text fields. At the end of this presentation, I will share with you some simple steps that you can take to build something similar to this. As Nate mentioned before, Einstein Vision is an easy-to-use package that does all the AI for you when you upload a zip file consisting of images.
Just because Salesforce democratizes the data doesn't mean it's simple. I encourage people to check out the link here from 3 Blue, 1 Brown neural networks. It helps you understand what's going on behind the scenes. I've had everybody in my family watch this video because it really helps people understand what's going on in an AI environment. And even my mother, who is not a techie and actually hates the iPad she has to use, has watched this video and has a better understanding on why computers now behave in a particular way. This is particularly important when you start looking at images. So as Nathan mentioned, he captured over 100 images of the cat doing various things on the front porch to be able to get that recognition right. And if you understand how AI is evaluating those images, you know the better type of images to gather, and that makes your model much stronger. It's a really worthwhile video to watch here to make sure you get that stuff right. Once you have the confidence coming back from Einstein, Nathan, what did you do with that confidence score? Whoop, we can't hear you, Nathan. Try again.
Hello?
Yeah.
There, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. It's just a simple formula from there that looks to see if Cider is likely meowing on the porch, and then post a header with an app mentioned me, which will then show up on my phone.
Thank you, Nathan. That's a very specific use case. How about we cover some use cases that is more applicable to the audience present here?
Personally, my interest in image recognition really started when I was in an amusement park and found the estimated wait times on their app to be wildly inaccurate. So while my dad and I were waiting, we considered using the same setup, which would tie into ride variables, to provide a much more accurate estimate.
So that's great, Nathan. And that actually is a real use case. So I have been asked by customers to come and present pretty much what Nathan has shown you here today for line management. So think of large situations like Dreamforce where you have very long lines, or ski resorts, or lines waiting at security lines, specifically airports. We've demoed and discussed this very solution with customers for that use case. Serby, you've got a favorite as well.
Sure. I want to talk about Einstein object detection and planograms. Retailers often plan the use of their physical space to ensure proper product placement. And with Einstein object detection, you can simply take a picture of a shelf, and Einstein will let you know if the objects are in the right place or not, and give you suggestions. The planogram use case was showcased at Dreamforce last year and again this year. So please go check it out at the Einstein Vision and Language booth right behind you.
My first Einstein demo was diabetic retinopathy, which is taking a picture of a person's eye, inside their eye, to evaluate whether they have diabetic retinopathy, which is one of the leading causes of blindness. And we were able to get a 97.3% accuracy on our first training set of data. This allowed the doctors to make sure the patients were being prioritized properly, not doing diagnostic stuff, but making sure that they could identify patients really quickly and get them in to deal with the disease. We also have the ability for product and logo. So this one's a little bit obvious maybe, but monitoring your product and your logo information online, or if you're in field service, taking a picture of your product to make sure you can replace it properly. And finally, we've got 2 Einstein Vision demos, one at Robotics Ridge and the car crash demo at Lego City in the IoT Village, where you crash a Lego car and then you take a picture of it to identify the severity of the damage. Again, this is being used by insurance companies and is one of the big projects that we just started this year. So when somebody has an insurance claim, they can take a picture of the car, which then can prioritize the amount of damage, and if it's small enough, potentially automate an entire business process. And that's a really good use case. And like I mentioned, these are real use cases that have been demoed to customers, and many of them are in the process of being rolled out today. So, Serbi, I know you're eager to start sharing how people can get into this and do it themselves. So let's get into a little bit of hands-on here on a training set.
Perfect. This is the Einstein Playground, which will soon be available to everyone on the App Exchange. It has a wide range of capabilities like image classification, object detection, and text analysis, and using natural language processing. So I wanted to play around with Einstein Vision, so I created something fun. The first step is to collect data. So I went ahead and collected images of mountains and beaches and organized them into a folder like this. Created a separate folder for mountains, separate folder for beaches, and compressed everything into a zip file. The next step is to upload this zip file onto Salesforce. I just have to drag and drop this. So Einstein then creates a data set for us to use. One great thing about this playground is that it lets you track the progress of the data set creation. These are all the data sets that we used for the demos showcased at Dreamforce this year. OK, so the status set succeeded here. And as you can see, there are 50 images of mountains and 49 images of beaches. The next step is to create a machine learning model. I know this sounds a bit scary, but all you have to do is hit this train button. And a model is created for you in a few seconds. Now let's do something fun and try out some predictions. I found this image on the internet, and it was not part of the training set. Now let's see what Einstein thinks this is. This is great. Einstein is 97% sure that this is an image of a mountain. Now let's talk about Einstein language. I wanted to figure out the best way to route support cases. So I went ahead and created a data set using Excel. I collected historical case data and classified it into different categories like password help, shipping info, order change, and so on. The next step is to upload this zip file onto Salesforce like we did for Einstein Vision.
So this is one of the important things. These are custom models. Salesforce focus is on custom models. So you get to define what language, what interactions you've got with your customers to get the prediction.
Like before, we can still track the status of the data set creation. Here, the status says succeeded, and you can see the different labels that I created, like order change, sales opportunity, billing, and password help. So the next step, again, is to create a machine learning model. And again, you just have to hit the train button. After a few moments, a model is created, and you can track the progress of the model creation as well. Now, let's try predicting some text.
So while Serby types in the text, one of the things to remember is this text is usually coming from some sort of process automation, whether it's an inbound email, a case response, chat or post, or in Nathan's case where he's uploading the image from the files in Salesforce. So we're just using the basic playground here so you can play with it and get familiar with it and test it out.
This is great. Einstein is 99% sure that this is related to shipping info, and then it routes it to the respective department.
Wonderful. So let's tell you how you can get started. Now that you've seen what can be done, you've seen that it's not scary and it's quite straightforward. Nathan, you there with us? Can we hear you? Try again. I think we heard you.
Okay.
So
on the screen here, you can see some of the trails I found helpful to get me familiar with the functions that I would need for this project. The code and hardware is all listed on the link you see on the screen, and you can find my summary and the code I wrote at sfdc.co/DreamforceCat.
Thanks, Nathan. Also, like I mentioned before, the Einstein Playground will be available on the AppExchange very soon. But until then, and because all of you attended Dreamforce this year, we have a special link for you to use and test out the beta version. Please note that this is not supported by Salesforce yet, but just until it is officially on the AppExchange. We constantly make updates to the existing Lightning components, and we constantly try to add new Lightning components on a GitHub repository that is open sourced and is available to everyone using Salesforce. So please go check it out. The link to the GitHub repository is provided on the slide. And lastly, for you to get started with Salesforce Einstein, please make sure that your Salesforce org is DevHub enabled.
wonderful. Thank you, Serby, and thank you to you and your team who have been able to put this together and share it to make life so easy, particularly on Nathan's behalf, to be able to get this working, and maybe from Cider's behalf a little bit as well to keep our cat happy. Thank you, Nathan, for sharing your experience with us. And I think it should be coming up on noon there, so you can get back to school for Friday afternoon. And appreciate all your time and sharing your experience. Bye. And to everybody here who came out, especially early on a Friday morning, we really appreciate your attendance. Definitely check out sfdc.co, Dreamforce Cat, capital D and C. And we have all the code there. If you have questions about it, you can reach out to me, and I'll forward your questions on to Nathan. Again, thank you very much. What a wonderful audience. Thank you, Serby. Have a wonderful final day at Dreamforce, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.